Okay, hey, I think we're live. Hey, everybody, this is John Sudol. Welcome, everybody, to the Understanding the Language Your Face Speaks webinar. I hope everybody's doing really good today. We're expecting people from all over the country, all over the world, so it's kind of pretty cool to be talking to everybody all at the same time. So before we get started, first introduce myself. My name is John Sudol, and I'm an acting coach here in Los Angeles. I'm also the author of Acting Face to Face, the actor's guide to understanding how your face communicates emotion for TV and film. And kind of still getting some of these technical bugs out of the way. So excuse me if there's any problem with the process. Let me see if we're going to be coming in okay. I think there's a little delay on this, so I guess we should be okay. So when you sign in, guys, if you can just say hi, that'd be great. Make sure that I'm working, everything's working okay, because this is a little bit of a delay. So anyway, let's go back to where we were. My name is John Sudol. I'm an acting coach here in Los Angeles and an audition coach. I work with people for their auditions, TV, film. I'm also, as I said, the author of Acting Face to Face, and what's great about that so far is that the book itself has been up in the top 5 best-selling acting books on Amazon, so I'm really, really happy about that. Give you a little background on myself. I've worked successfully over the past 30 years as a writer, director, story editor. I've been artistic director of 2 different theaters, one here in Los Angeles and one in Seattle, Washington. So if you have any Seattle people, hey, it's been a while. I've also been a casting director. My casting experience actually started in Seattle. I had, besides casting my own plays, I also had a casting company called Casting Northwest with Fern Ornstein, who's VP of casting down here in Los Angeles, and we did a lot of we cast commercials, voiceovers, we cast stage. We also did 2 talent searches for ABC Network. A lot of your daytime soap stars came out of our talent search back in the early 80s. So that being said, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this webinar and what we're going to cover. And see. Okay, so about this webinar, what I'm hoping to do is to present a new shift to you, a new shift in thinking, a new way of seeing things, not only in your thoughts about acting, but about your whole approach. I'm going to ask you to participate. If you have a question, a thought, something that you want to talk about, jot it down in the comments section. And if I can't get to it while we're on the air, I'll definitely answer it when we get off. So just make sure you put your comments there. If I happen to say something that you really, really like during this webinar, I really would appreciate it if you hit the like page, but I'll try to earn it. And also, stay to the very end, because at the end of this webinar, I'm going to have a really great special offer for you about a very, very cool class. But I want you to hang to the end, because it's really important that you understand the work I'm about to talk about. And before we start this whole webinar, I like to start it by paraphrasing Henry Thoreau, because of the nature of this work. Thoreau said, "How can I come from my ignorance, which is so necessary to my growth, when I keep coming from my knowledge all the time?" So I'm going to ask you just for the next 45 minutes or so, just to kind of give up all your thoughts, your concepts about acting. Just kind of, in other words, be stupid for 45 minutes. You don't have to know anything, because if you try to figure out what I am telling you and trying to put it in the box of your thoughts and beliefs, odds are you're going to miss the point. Okay, so that being said, here's what I'm going to cover in the next 45 minutes. I'm going to introduce you to the language of the face, or LOF as we call it here. I'm going to show you how the face speaks. I'm going to tell you all about what all great actors, on-camera actors especially, have in common, and why only a small percentage of the actors get the majority of on-camera acting work. And also, I'm going to end it with what you can do to level the playing field. So there's a lot to cover. I'm going to try to move fairly quickly to it. Again, if you got any questions, any thoughts, any comments, just put it in the comment box, and I'll try to answer it as we go on. So, about 20 years ago or so, I was on an audition. I was working pretty successfully as an actor at the time. It was for a guest starring role. I went in for the audition. This was a straight-to-producer's read. And I knew the casting director, knew the producer, but however, I didn't know the director. So I went in for the read. I did the read. I can see the casting director goes, I got a little smile in her eye, and the producer's thinking, yeah, this is good. The director, on the other hand, was not so. It was not. He wasn't impressed, but he wanted something different. So he gave me some adjustments. I thought, okay, that's cool. I did the scene again. And he still hung there staring at me for this long moment, shaking his head. And then he gets up. I know he likes me because he gets up, puts his arm around me, and starts giving me what I call romantic language. Now, I'm not saying that he was asking me out. I'm saying romantic language is the kind of language it's to inspire us. It's to provoke a specific feeling from us. It's inferential language because I don't want to tell you exactly what to do, but we're going to infer it. So the story he was giving me is kind of like, you remember your first heartbreak? Remember what that felt like? Remember looking out the window wondering if anybody's going to love you again? Well, you go, yeah, I remember that. Wow, boom, got me. So that was what he was talking to me about. So his language was very moving. Got it. I felt good. I did this scene again, and then there was like this long, dead silence. And then he gave me this kind of strained smile, and said, thanks. Even you can tell by the tone of my voice, you can tell that I did not get the job. So I walked out of that audition completely frustrated because the job was mine. All I had to do was to give him that one specific reaction, and the job was mine. And of course, I didn't do it. And that moment there planted the seeds for what my next 20 years of my life was going to be about, understanding emotions, how they're communicating. And it ultimately led me to this language of the face and understanding how your face communicates thought, feeling, and emotion. So when I talk about the language of the face, what it is a process and a set of tools that teaches you how to communicate non-verbally, what you feel and what you think through the use of emotional facial expressions. Now, I really want to be clear right from the very beginning, this is not face acting. It's the direct result of thoughts and feelings. And when we do this correctly, what it does is allows the viewer to read your mind. So why do we need a process for this nonverbal emotional language? Because the biggest difference between acting for the camera and acting for the stage is all about how your face communicates emotion, thought, and feeling. And without it, we are trying to get the intimacy of thought and feeling through our body and our voice. So the language of the face is that process that helps us to communicate those subtleties. So let me ask you a few questions to see how in alignment you are with how your face communicates these subtle thoughts and emotions. So anyone out there, if you agree with one of these, raise your hand in a second. Okay. Often told that your acting is too big or too small, or you have problems adjusting it. I can often tell when I see myself on the screen, I'm not revealing what I'm feeling. I can't seem to stop my face from moving. It seems no one knows what I'm feeling. Every headshot I take looks the same. Now, can you say yes to any one of those questions? And do me a favor, play along with me a moment. And If you can say yes to any one of those, wherever you are, at a coffee shop or at home, sitting on a couch, just raise your hands. And you'll see that you are not alone because the majority of people have some of these same problems. And these are very real challenges that every actor, or I should say most every actor, is presented with when they try to adjust their stage training and tools in order to work for the camera. So the resulting of you too big, too small, unable to adjust what your face is saying, that you have this constant moving. You're constantly blinking. Your eyebrows are constantly jutting up or coming down. When you look at your face, it looks blank. Or that, every headshot you take, it seems that's the same expression I did at the one before. And when you think about it, the one thing that all those problems have in common, it's all resulting of what's happening on your face. So these are the challenges that we are going to be talking about today and what you might be able to do and to make the adjustments to give yourself a better shot of having a successful on-camera acting career. Everybody wants to have a successful on-camera acting career. I mean, nobody goes into and go, hey, I'm really rather do stage, but I'm going to work on camera. No, this is what you're setting out to do, so you have to understand this third channel of emotional communication. Now, what's interesting here is that when in my seminars here in LA, I'll have maybe 50, 75 people, and I'll ask them a few questions. I'll say to them, for example, I know you're all serious about your career. And true, and everybody will nod yes. And I said, well, then, if you're serious, then everybody has studied acting. If you've already been studying acting or you're in the process, raise your hand. And probably about 95% of the people will raise their hand. Then we'll go on. I'll say, how many people here have studied improvisation? Maybe another 75% raise their hand. I have. Then I'll ask, how about voice and diction? Because you got to be heard and it's got to be clear. And then we'll have maybe another 25, 30% of the people will raise their hand. And then I will say to them, how many of you actually study the nature and experience of emotion? By that I mean, what triggers an emotion? What do they feel like? What do they compel you to do? And what do they look like on your face, from the very subtle to the extreme? And 99 out of 100 times, I'll get no one. And yet, when you think about it, what business are we in? We are in the emotional communication business, and yet very few people understand emotions. So when I was a young actor, talking about the emotions and how they're communicated, I used to always go to my acting coach saying, how do you what's universal about good acting? How do you know it when you see it? And so all of them would always say to me, if you want to recognize good acting, you want to see it, then turn the sound down on your TV and watch. And how many of you have done it out there? Have you turned down the TV and watched and go, yes, that's good acting? So if you have, then you can recognize what good acting is. So let's do this together. We're going to see if this next clip I'm going to play you, do you think it's good acting? I'm going to set it up for you. It's a scene from In Bruges. And Ray Fiennes is a hitman. Brendan Gleeson, who's in this scene as well, is another hitman. What's his name? Colin Farrell is also in it, but he's not in this particular clip. And what has happened is Ray Fiennes has sent Colin Farrell out on a hit. He's supposed to hit someone, but he accidentally kills a little kid. Now Ray Fiennes finds this out, and of course it goes against the code of the hitman, and he wants Brendan Gleeson to kill Colin Farrell, but Brendan Gleeson is unable to do that. Ray Fiennes finds out about this, and now there's this confrontation. Now, keep in mind, Ray Fiennes is a very hot-tempered hitman. And I want you to watch this clip. Watch the subtleties of both their actors' faces and see if you can't tell what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And as we go on, occasionally I might call something out for you to watch. Okay, so here's the clip. It's about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes from In Bruges. Okay, watch the opening moment. It goes close on Ray Fine's face, and you'll see different feelings he's got going on. Can you tell? Now watch how it changes from this reluctant. Here you go. Can you tell what he's feeling? You can't. That's anger. Watch Brendan Gleeson's face when you see the pain that will cross it. Be quick. There you go. As he's changed so far, Ray finds is still in the same emotional place. Is it playing? It's not getting it. Okay, now watch here. In a moment, you're going to see Ray Fiennes go from mild anger to very, very rage. Here it goes. All right. I think we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty right now, so let me make sure. Is anybody on? Okay, so. Hang on 1 second. We just have experienced a little technical difficulty. Turn it down. Scroll the page down. Up. Play. Okay, so we just kind of, all right, great. So everything is working fine. Sorry, guys, it just we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty on that. So back to what I was saying here. So when you watched that, I hope you enjoyed that little bit of a clip. So most people have the ability to read this emotional language that the face is speaking, but here's the thing, that great actors have the ability to speak it. So reading it and speaking are two different things. It's like kind of growing up an Italian-speaking grandma when you know, you understand when she wants her shoes, her coffee, but you don't understand any Italian. So it's the same thing. The reason why you don't need to understand Italian. Anyway, let's go on. So I want you to look at these upcoming faces here, and tell me what you think they're feeling. So when you look at each photo, try to allow yourself just to see what they're feeling and what they might be thinking. You don't have to figure it out, just feel it. When you look at De Niro, is that a static shot or is he feeling something? Good. Now, the one thing that all these actors have in common is that they all have the skill to create real, recognizable, and appropriate emotional facial expressions. And that's what is moving us. So the ability to do that, when we're thinking, sometimes we get into this place, and it drives me crazy out here when we're thinking, well, that's too big, too small. And really what we need to be thinking about is what's appropriate for what is happening. So since they're all having some degree of emotional reveal on their face, then you can see how it's critical for us to understand emotions. So my question to you, we're going to ask is, what are emotions? And I'm going to answer that here simply. Emotions are reactions to things that we deem to be important to our well-being, either in a positive or negative way. Now, the key word here is important. You see, the thing is, if it doesn't really mean anything to you, you're not going to get emotional about it. A lot of times, when we're preparing for our scenes, we might have a little feeling about it, but it's really not enough to move us into action. So we have to bring our body in, and we have to begin to yell it in order to begin to heighten the emotion. But bottom line is, if you don't feel anything about the situation, you don't care about it, it's not going to move you in any particular way. So your face speaks a very emotional, cognitive, and emblematic language. Now I don't have time to go into each one of these in detail, but I really want to focus on the emotional here. So what you might not know about emotions is that there are 7 universal emotions that anyone on the planet, people are going to recognize: anger, happy, sad, surprise, fear, contempt, and as well as disgust. Now, what makes these emotions universal is because they all have unique muscle groups or muscle patterns that are unique and distinct to that emotion and that emotion only. You won't find the muscle groups in anger, in sadness, or surprise. That's why it's recognizable. And if you've been going out, if you're an actor, you might have heard the saying, we'll know it when we see it, whether it be a casting director or a director. Well, the reason why they know it when they see it is because they are all recognizable, and they're biological. They tend to move us. When somebody approaches you with a face, this guy who has the anger face, when somebody comes at you with that, it's probably going to trigger, more than likely, that picture below, the fear, because we see the potential harm. Now, if we don't think the harm is really that is going to be that great, then odds are we might go to contempt. Or if we feel we're helpless to do anything, then we'll probably go to sadness. So these emotions move us, and when we see them on somebody else's face, they begin to change us. That's why those photos when I was just showing you were moving you. You felt the sadness, the fear, the worriment, the contempt, the disdain that was going on. So now what's also cool about these emotions is that they also have universal triggers, meaning there's different things that trigger each one of these emotions. When you understand those triggers, you know what the character might be feeling in the scene. They also have universal sensations. They feel a certain way. Certain things happen to your body. Now think about this. When something happens that provokes an emotion in us, the brain starts sending these impulses to the body. The breath picks up, skin gets warmer, the blood may move to our hands or to our legs, and our brain is preparing us to take an action. And they all have these universal actions. With anger, it might be to remove the interference, to fear, to minimize the harm. So if you know what the character is feeling, you know what they want to do, that's the action, and you know what they're experiencing, and so you know where you are in each emotion. If you're not feeling the sensations and you don't have this impulse to action, then odds are you're probably not triggering that emotion to the degree you need to in order to move into action. Now, what's really interesting about these emotions is that if you know the muscle groups as well, just the movement of some of these muscle groups will begin to provoke the emotion as well. So I don't know if you can see the photo of me here, and neutral. And then what I want you to do, if you can, wherever you're sitting, I want you to drop your mouth slightly. Just let it part a little bit. And then I want you to jet the jaw out very slowly. And I want you to move it a little bit to the left and to the right. You're seeking some negative energy. When you find it, hold it there. You might, for some of you might have to jet the jaw out a little bit further, but everything's slow. And once you find it, I want you to close down on the mouth. Press the teeth together and the lips and press hard. You should begin to feel your heart beginning to pick up, a little racing. You might not know it right now, but you're probably staring at somebody. So be careful if you're at a coffee shop. It's very aggressive. Good. Now, you can let that go. And anybody, if you did that and you felt the sensations, take a moment. Let me know. Let me know how you felt. Did you begin to feel the heart beginning to race? Did you feel possibly a little impatience? Did you find yourself staring at someone? So I teach my students how to access each of these emotions with the least amount of effort so that it doesn't take much to provoke the emotion if you do it correctly. The more emotion, the more muscle groups we bring in, obviously, the bigger the expression is going to be. So let me know if you felt anything on that one. So as I said, the face speaks a very emotional language. It also speaks a cognitive. By cognitive, oftentimes, if you're trying to solve a problem, certain things might happen with the brow. There's a different kind of focus in the face, as well as the emblematic is just signs and symbols. Hold on one second. What's happening? Okay, cool. All right. Again, I don't know what's happening. We're having a little internet problem, so I'm hoping this is not breaking up. But I can't go. I'm not going to go into the cognitive or the emblematic right now. But these are different ways that your face does speak. When you don't like something, you may give a little bit of a sign of disgust in order to let somebody know I'm not going to be eating that. The cognitive, again, is just about how we're thinking. And when we're thinking, the face also has some different muscle groups that come in order to help us stay focused and determined. Now, what I was just showing you a moment ago, all those 7 photos were what's called this expression is called a macro expression. But that's not the only way we express. We also express them very quickly and very small, which is called the micro expression. And the third way is the subtle or the partial. So when an emotion is just beginning to build, it might be in that subtle stage or a partial emotion, and it's very smaller, or we're trying to control the emotion and only parts of this emotion are leaking out. So for those of you who like the visual, this is, as you can see here, these nerve endings are what happened to us when we begin to become emotional. So what ends up happening is when we become emotional, it sends these charges down to the voluntary and involuntary facial muscles. Now, if you don't want somebody to know what you're feeling, then what you're going to use the involuntary muscles to try to control. You're going to use the voluntary muscles to try to control the involuntary. In other words, as soon as that emotion comes up, you're going to try to stifle it, but you can't. Within you can't completely. There's for a 24th of a second will be the leakage of that emotion, and that's what they call a micro expression, an involuntary release of this emotion on your face. Now, if you've seen the show Lie to Me, it was all about micro expressions and how we can tell when somebody is trying to deceive us because we see this leakage. Now, can we use this for acting? Yes, but we have to use it in a different way. The quick leakage of how we're feeling and what we're feeling and what we're thinking. Because micro expressions are involuntary. They happen. Because something real is going on. And we're, as you know, actors, we live in the imaginary world. So let's look at the partial real quickly, because I want to show you this. Now here's the emotion. We see anger, contempt, fear, and disgust. But now look at the more subtle. When I bring in the anger, you can see it's the subtlety that it has parts of those muscle groups, but not all of them. You can still tell what I'm feeling. We go to contempt. Fear. Now notice that's not all the muscle groups, but you can still see this is not fear, but this is worried, or me trying to control the fear. And the disgust, again, these are subtle. We look at the sad or the surprise. Now this is only 2 muscle groups roughly of surprise, but they're very, very small. Can you still read the emotion? And happy. Now, remember in the opening, I showed you all those photos of those, wonderful actors in the emotional state. Now, I want you to look at those photos again from a point of what you understand about emotions. We see the fear. We see the brows lifting up and pulling together. We see the tension under the eyes and the eyelids lifting up. We're seeing the whites of the eyes. And we can see the mouth dropping and pulling back. These are the muscle groups of fear. But now look at Denzel Washington. Can you see why you saw the fear there? Look at Hugh Jackman. Look at the brow. Look at the widening of the eyes and how the mouth is pulling back. With Will Smith, we got he's got 2 emotions going on. One side of his face, he's got sad, and the other side, he's got worried. And Tom Hanks got 3 messages going. He's got the worried, he's got the sadness, and he also has pain. It's a very moving photo when Wilson left. Now, here's the thing that I really want you to hear, is that every recognizable emotional facial expression will be a piece of, a combination of, or a blend of those 7 universal emotions. Now, think how cool that is, that every recognizable emotional facial expression will come out of a piece of, maybe it's 1 muscle group, or it might be 2 muscle groups, or it might be a blend of these 7. So when you think of these 7 universal emotions, think of the 3 primary colors. How many colors can you make out of them? So when we look at whether it be TV or film, now can you see Catherine Zeta-Jones? Look at the eyes widening, but that eyes widening is excitement. But look at the excitement she has. It's happy. It's delightful. She's having a good time. But now we look, and that excitement now is fear, worried. And we have Johnny Depp, but look at the corners of the mouth. We have fear, we have excitement, but it's connected with sadness. So whatever is happening here, he's excited about the potential loss. Look at the cops, and you're gonna be you're gonna play a detective on one of these series. Is that small? Is that big? Or do you see the excitement, and at the same time, they have stronger jaws, they're very determined. So they're still under that excitement. And if you don't have that on your face, then we don't believe anything is really going on. And it's going to be, it doesn't matter what's happening. If the excitement's not there, it's not going to be engaging. I got Joe Montana, what's really kind of interesting about him. He's got very little going on in his face as far as muscle changes. But if you look under his one eye there, you can see a level of tension. And then you can also see the little arching brow that he has. He looks, I got my eye on you. But it's that little tension that's under his eyelid that connects us. He's watching somebody. When you look at Shomar here, he's probably one of the most compassionate of all the cops. And the reason why, look at that brow, that sad brow, the strong jaw, that he's compassionate, at the same time he's very strong. Unlike Tom here, he never leaves home without that brow, the anger brow coming down, very focused, very determined, has no sense of humor. It's all on his face. Each one of these characters are defined by what is on their face. We know what they're feeling. We know what they're thinking. Now people worry, oh, even CSI, you know, everything very, 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 very small. But you look at his face, there's nothing small about what's happening right there. You're very connected. That's huge loss in how he's trying to manage that loss. And you look at the characters around, you can see the same thing. So what tools have we gotten to achieve this emotional facial expression connecting? Remember, this is just one of the channels. The facial is one channel, the other channel is the body, and the other channel is the voice. Those are the three channels of nonverbal communication. So for most of us, we only learn two. And how we're making this adaptation is these certain beliefs. What they believe that the majority of actors who are working on camera, what they're doing is they're bringing it through the eyes. So you're trying to create emotion and trying to ram it through your eyeballs. How many people out there have this belief? I'm sure there's quite a bit, but when you go to the reality of it, well, your eyeballs themselves don't communicate the emotion. It's what happens all around them. Now, we all see that the eyes are connected to something. They're looking at something, but they all, around their face, all have different things that are going on. With De Niro, can you see the worry that he has going on? He's trying to manage that worry. Leonardo, that's definite anger. And when we look at Meryl Streep, the questioning, the tight mouth, so it looks like she's very contemptuous. So bringing it through the eyes, first of all, just it doesn't work because you can't ram an emotion through your eyes. Now, the second tool that we get is just think the thought. Now, I know a lot of people believe that all you have to do is think the thought and it will magically appear on your face. The camera doesn't, manufacture your thoughts. You do. And it has to be, the camera doesn't create them, you've got to reveal them. Now, thinking the thought, here's what I want to tell you about that. That we all know how important thinking the thought is. It's the impetus to action. And every acting teacher will tell you you have to have thought. But here's what they don't tell you, is that a thought not connected to a strong enough idea, opinion, or feeling, if it's not interwoven around an emotion, it will never change your face. And a facial expression without a thought is an acting lie. So it's always stimulus response. Another tool that we get is just to be honest. Now, I think that being honest, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to be honest, but I think it goes back to being honest is like romantic language. What the heck does it mean just to be honest? And what I would venture to guess what most people think as being honest is I'm feeling something. Now, you might be feeling, and you could be feeling up a storm, and that is your inner truth. However, there's another truth that you have to be concerned with, and that is the outer truth. And that's what the viewer sees, because you don't know that you're telling the truth until I, the viewer, tell you you are. So just because you're feeling doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate to your face and being picked up by the camera. Another tool that we get to, or adjustment that often we're asked to make in order to change our stage acting to on-camera acting is just make everything smaller. Now, stage acting is not the same as, on-camera acting isn't the same as stage acting, just make it smaller, because not every TV show, is small. I mean, if you watch the Disney Channel, watch Nickelodeon, those are anything but small. CSI, yes, they're small, but remember that shot I showed you, with the captain? That was very, very emotional, and it was anything but small. So here's what I want when we're thinking big and small. Here's my suggestion to you. The suggestion is think in what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. So if your reaction, the trigger that you're using to produce an emotional response in you is too hot, you're going to have a too big of a reaction. If it's not hot enough, you'll have a too small of a reaction. So we want to look at what is appropriate for what's happening under these circumstances. I think I give an example in my book where I'm talking about one of my students who I asked her to take a sip of the coffee and find it a little bit bitter. She took a sip, and the reaction that was on her face was huge. It was as if there was, something foul in her coffee. And the reason why that was is that she was very, very sensitive to bitter things. So even though the reaction is too big, it is truthful, but it's inappropriate for what is being asked of you. So the 4 ways that we can make adjustments, or the 4 tools and adjustments that we have at our disposal so far, is to bring it through the eyes, think the thought, be honest. On camera acting is the same as stage, just smaller. But none of these tools or adjustment really deal with how to communicate real thought, real feeling, and real emotion, and be able to control the expression of that from the most subtle to the extreme, and that's consistent. And that's what language, understanding the language the face speaks, begins to get you to see. That's what you're reading. So is there something missing? I think so. Now, a lot of you out there might be sitting going, well, okay, well, if I create it, then it should appear on my face appropriately. Why doesn't it do that? And for some people, it doesn't. And the reason why, there could be 3 reasons why what you're feeling doesn't appear on your face the way you intended to. One is the tools that you're using. Perhaps you don't have the right tool to create something more intimate, something more moving that doesn't always involve the body. Because once we involve the body and the voice, we are in creating the emotion from that, we're going to be bigger no matter what. Another reason you might not get what you intend is the trigger is inappropriate. What I was talking about before with the girl tasting the bitter and getting a big reaction. You're using the wrong trigger to provoke that emotion. And the 3rd way is what I call distortions. Now, distortions are anything that interferes with the creating or revealing of an emotion. In my book, I talk about these. There's 7 of them. And the biggest distortion will be your face. So some of the other ones might be how you're wired, the culture you're raised in, family idiosyncrasies, your own psychology, inappropriate emotional triggers, how you listen inferentially or literal. Any one of these can interfere either with the creating or how you're going to reveal. But I want to stick with your face. So you guys can see these 3 actors that I have here, and I want you to look at their faces. Take a moment. We've been looking at emotions. What do you think they're feeling? And do you think they're feeling anything at all? Is what's on their face, does it look like that's just nothing's going on? If you look at Daryl at the very end, you might think he's seeing something that's amazing, or he's looking at E.T. and it's like, wow, what is that? He looks a little bit dazed. The gal in the center seems to have a bit of an attitude. You might feel like you just said, what? A little condescending. And our lady to the far right, although subtle, you can see there's a hint of worried and possibly sadness that's going on her face. And all 3 of these can be really some interesting characters, whatever they got going on. Now, what would you think if I told you that not one of these actors was creating anything on their own, that none of them were feeling anything, that this is just how they were looking at me while I was talking? So I was talking, and as each one looked at me, I took the photo. This is what their face is saying without saying anything. So when we look, I'm going to go back to these distortions a second. Your face talks. There's 2 ways that your face is going to be talking to us. One through the static and the other through what I call the default. Now your static face, That's just a face kind of nature has given you because of the um, how deep the eyes are set, how low the brow is, how full the lips are, the how high the eyebrows are from the eyelids. This is all, muscle structure, and or it might be years of feeling an emotion over and over again has gotten etched on your face. That's your static face. Not much you can do about that. However, your default face is a little bit different. That's the face you go to. You might go to it under social conditions. You might go to it when you're feeling some stress. It's the face you put on also to protect yourself. Now, if people are reading that, they are immediately thinking you're thinking something when you're not. So we go back to the photos again. Let's take a look at him. What are we seeing? We're seeing Daryl's eyebrows. Look how high they are from his eyelids. So it looks like he's a little bit surprised. The mouth is dropped open. Look at the distance from the girl in the center. Her eyebrows from her eyelids. It looks like their eyebrows are raised, but actually they're not. That's just where they're placed on. The fullness of the girl on the far right, her lips. Each one of their faces has if we went back to the photos of the emotions, you could see how their face looks like that emotion. And people think that that's who you are or that's what you're feeling. So is your face talking without you knowing? That's the question. For example, do people think you're feeling something when you're not? How many people out there are asked, "Are you okay?" Or I thought you were a certain way. I thought you were more aloof. But are people feeling something and thinking you're feeling when you're not? Are people often unclear about what you're feeling, or is your face overactive, showing every thought? Do people tend to read you wrong? Think that you're smarter than you really are and not as smart, aloof, arrogant? They think that you're fragile or even flirtatious? This is your face talking to us. So my question I'm going to ask you, is your face speaking behind your back? Now, because people are going to think that's who you are. And if that's money, if you look like you are already involved. However, if your default face is the one you're putting on to protect you, you might not know the behavior that's associated with that emotion that's on your face. I don't know if that makes sense to you. If you're on your face, for example, you walk out and you bring in that anger face. You got the brows pulled down, jaws are jutting out, and you're walking out, and you look like you're really ticked off. However, you're doing that because you're really scared. You're just protecting yourself. You won't know the behavior of that person who acts with that anger and that intensity. What you're really trying to do is try to keep people away from you by flashing that face. So for the actor, it's like misrepresenting yourself if you take a headshot to something that you can't back up. Now, the reality of these distortions, if they're interfering with what you're trying to create or reveal, then you're going to have a problem when it comes to on-camera acting. Because if there's a difference between what you feel and what your face reveals, booking becomes very, very difficult. And the further you are away from that center, it becomes virtually impossible. And this is the reason why I believe only a small percentage of the actors get the majority of on-camera acting work, because only a small percentage of the actors are in what I call emotional alignment. So if you're not in emotional alignment, you're going to have quite a few problems. You're going to find that the playing field is not leveled. And it's hard to win when it's not leveled. And the thing is, every actor who wants to work consistently on camera must have the skill to create and control what their face is expressing. Because that's what moves us. That's what TV and film acting is all about. And that's what you were never told about on-camera acting. Now, I'll take you on a little journey. I've talked to you about how the face communicates. I talked to you about emotions. I was talking to you about how your own psychology, your own cultural display rules might interfere with how you express, how you're wired to express. Now, if you have any of those distortions, they're really difficult to change on your own. And the reason why is because how you're expressing right now feels right. So it's hard to bring any attention to something that feels right. So it's hard to change it. However, if you had a way to identify how you're expressing and identify what needed to be changed, then the odds are getting more in alignment. You're going to have a greater success rate. So here's the part where I'm going to give you your brains back, because I'm going to bring you to the crossroads of things. Up until now, you've had two means of emotional communication, nonverbal. And that's, you've learned the body, you learned the voice. You got to do that. Now today, I'm offering you a third channel, and that's how the face communicates. And now when you think about it, that does identify on-camera acting, because on stage we need to hear you, we need to see you. We can't see the subtlety of emotion. So now you have this choice. Well, do I go down the same place I'm doing, take the same headshots, get the same criticism, being too big, too small, or do I venture out into the unknown? And I got to tell you, warning, we are creatures to our consistency. So if you have any beliefs about that it's all in the eyes, it's all everything, making everything smaller, that it's just thinking the thought, if you have been very consistent in your belief in that, it's really hard to change it. So I want to take this moment to think. Let me put that aside and go, is a possibility that that doesn't happen for everyone. And if I want to have a successful on-camera acting career, I have to go down a different path. So if you're ready to go down that path, if you want to learn about the subtleties of how the face expresses emotion, feeling, and thought, and how to create that, then game on. Because imagine what it would feel like if you can create any emotion or combination of emotions, knew how intensely you were feeling them, and knew how intensely they were being expressed on your face, and you could do all of that on demand. Imagine what that might do for your on-camera acting audition success, because only a small percentage of the actors can do it. So the first step in leveling the playing field and speaking the language of the face is getting into emotional alignment. Now, in order to do that, you need to understand how you personally reveal emotion, because we need to find out about those distortions. You have to understand emotions, because we've always heard emotion is the impetus to action. However, we didn't know about emotions. So what we were working before is action is the impetus to I can't talk right now, to the impulse to action. And we have to understand and master the muscle groups, because when we're asked to make something really subtle, we have to take away certain things that are happening on the face. And when we're asked to make it bigger, we're asked to include it. So we have to have control over these muscle groups if we want to control the intensity in which they're revealed. So now think about it. If they don't recognize what's on your face, how can they hire you? If you can't consistently create and control what your face is expressing, how can you repeat it? If you don't know what you're expressing, how can you make it bigger, smaller, more or less intense? How can you adjust it? Let's take a moment. I just want to let that sink in. If they don't recognize what's on your face, how can they hire you? If you can't consistently create and control what your face is expressing, how can you repeat it? And if you don't know what you're expressing, how can you make it bigger, smaller, more or less intense? In other words, how can you adjust it? Now, when you're in emotional alignment, when speaking the language of the face, well, now your voice, your body, your facial communication is clear and recognizable. You're more apt to prepare appropriately for the character's emotional states because you understand emotions. You are not second guessing what or how much you're emotionally revealing because you can feel the sensations and feel the changes in your body, in your voice, and on your face. And modifying, meaning that we don't always want to show people what we're feeling, but you can't manage what you haven't created. In other words, if you haven't created the emotion, well, you can't alter it. You can't create it and manage it at the same time. That's not what the actors are doing. They're creating the emotion richly and then pulling it back. But if you try to create it and manage it at the same time, you stay in the same place. So getting into emotional alignment and speaking the language of the face is a game changer. There's no doubt about it. I have a lot of actors. I mean, I just pulled up some of these quotes from some of my actors who work in. For example, Gunnar works all the time. You can't help but see him on TV. And he came to me because he wanted to learn the subtleties of how we're expressed. If you watch Betty White's Off the Rockers, you've seen Aretha. She came to me for the reactions and understanding how to communicate clearer. And basically, she's using it all the time. Kind of just booked a ton of commercials. She's a working bandit. Eric, maybe later on you come back and read Eric's bio because it was kind of funny. He came to me in January with a goal of booking 13 commercials. By the time he came back in late December, he had booked 12 and on his way to the 13, and he ultimately booked all of them. So he increased his booking because he goes out commercially a lot, and having that ability to create real, recognizable, appropriate, emotional, facial expressions and do it on demand is money in the bank. And Susanna, you see her on TV. You see her in the subway spots. There's a ton of stuff, Criminal Minds, NCIS. And she came because she was having a specific problem with an emotion. She couldn't get in touch with it the way she wanted to. Once we started working together, I gave her the path to that emotion, and for her it was like the missing link. So these are the people, some of the people. You can go on my website and there's tons more. And when you get to emotional alignment, being in emotional alignment and learning to speak the language of the face can help and make you a better storyteller. Now, we get into the part where I just got a few moments. I just want to tell you what I have to offer you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the classes. I have online classes. I have my class in the studio, but you guys are everywhere around the world. So I want to give you a chance to be working on this, kind of groundbreaking material. So the Emotional Alignment Intensive I have coming up, it's going to be 2 classes. It's a total of 8 hours. In the first class, we do what's called an emotional screen test, and this is all on online. You have to have a webcam. You have to have internet access. So we do it. You can do it from home, do it from the coffee shop, as long as it's quiet. And I'm going to take you through the same process I do here in my LA studio. You're going to discover how you, and taking this emotional screen test, you're going to discover how you personally reveal emotion. You're going to learn what your face is saying to others and how you can use that information for your characters and understand how to use it even for your headshots. In this one class, this 4-hour class, you're also going to get a greater understanding of emotions and how these emotions are triggered, the understanding of the sensation and impulses that accompany them. In the second class, so you're going to leave this first class, you're going to see what your face is saying to others. You're going to begin to go through each of these emotions. You're going to create them. I'm going to capture them on camera. And then we're going to go back and look to see, well, what's on your face, is that what you wanted to reveal? Is that the intensity? And did that look like the emotion? Once we see if there's any distortions or the problem with the tools, then we set out to get into emotional alignment. And that we're going to break down each of the emotions into muscle groups. I'm going to show you each one of them. We're going to begin this alignment process. I'm going to give you the tools to create and connect and reveal these emotions. It's really powerful once you get connected to these tools. Each emotion, the tools also to build organically from the most subtle to the extreme. So you're going to start out small and build up so you can see the levels of the emotion. You're going to learn how to tap into this emotional power within and learn how to prepare it now with passion and commitment. So the emotional alignment is the actor's emotional toolbox. It's going to teach you how to get connected so you have rich, strong emotional preparation and how to connect to the emotion, whether it be in the middle of the scene or at the end of the scene, and how to unleash that power of emotion. Most oftentimes we're fighting against it, and that's why it doesn't work. And that you're going to gain a greater understanding of what you need to do to take a headshot that works. And that's all in these 2 classes, 8 hours. And as a bonus, you're going to start to learn how to detect and read, interpret micro and subtle expressions on others. That's very cool because that's power also. So I got the 2 4-hour classes coming up. I have 2. One's on Monday, May 12th and May 19th, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's Pacific Standard Time. So remember, I'm in California. And there's another one that's going to be on Saturday, May 10th and May 17th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So the 2 classes, 8-hour intensive, normally goes for $225. But we're on the web. This is a webinar, so I thought that I wanted to give you a better price than that. So for the webinar price, would be $175. That's a $50 savings. That's pretty good. But I'm also going to include in this the blueprint. So you're going to get basically it's another book. It's an emotional facial blueprint. It has all the muscle groups and various blends of emotion in there and how to get there, and plus all my notes on emotions. You're going to get a free ebook download of my book, Acting Face to Face. And where do we go? My computer got stuck. All right. Cool. All right. So to make this even better, the first 9 people to show up, I'm going to give a really cool incentive and bonus. Now remember, I can only take 8 people per session. That's it. No more. And so sometimes I only like to take 6. However, I have 2 classes that are setting up. That means I can take 18 people. So the first half of the group that shows up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down to 150. So that's $75 savings. Not only that, you're going to get the emotional facial blueprint, the emotional notes. You're going to get a copy of all the work in both classes. You're going to get a free ebook download. You need that. Plus, you're going to get a 30-minute follow-up private session with me. So we're going to do a 30-minute face-to-face. We'll do it, obviously, it'll be face-to-face, but online. And this 30 minutes will be about you. It'll be about your headshots. It'll be about the process. It'll be about your goals, whatever you want it to be about. And that is an additional $200 value. So when we're looking at how much you can save, if you act now, 9 people, I can't control that. Once it gets to a certain number, it cuts off, and you'll go on a waiting list. In the last class I had like 8 people on my waiting list. So I do suggest that you act fast. Now, if you scroll down to the bottom on the page where you're at right now, you'll see 2 buttons. One button is for the sign up for the emotional alignment, register now, and the other one is my ebook download. So if you haven't gotten a copy of Acting Face to Face, now's the time you can get a download. It's $3.99 on Amazon. For the hard copy, it's $13.95. For the ebook, it's $5.95. So you can get it the download from my website for $3.99. And so, but however, if you're going to take the class, don't get it because you're going to get a free copy of the book. I'm going to take a moment to see if there's any questions I have here. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, I think we answered all those. All right. So I want to thank you for stopping by. If there's any questions, this is going to be a limited time. First 9 people showing up, 150 and all the bonuses. If you have any questions, please email me And I look forward to hearing from you. Hey, guys, and thanks so much for allowing me to share the language of the face.